they can't get down this alley because he has it locked.
Hello.
Howdy. How y'all doing?
What's happening? Good.
Amy, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Marianne.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
I know it was asked to be the second signer or the other signer portion. I talked to Nora about trying to go over to the bank. I don't think I was ever she ever scheduled a time for me to go.
I think they
Just
you were already in their system,
Oh, okay.
so they just did it.
Was able to do it.
Yeah, they were just
Okay.
able to. Yeah. I know. They were like, "Oh, he's already in our thing. He's good."
Okay.
I'm ready whenever you are, Vice Mayor.
Okay. All right. If everybody please silence or mute your electronic devices, we will call this regular meeting to order. If we get a roll call, Amy, please.
Mayor Hartless, absent. Vice Mayor Waddell,
Here.
Councilmember De Leon,
Here.
Councilmember Daniels,
Present.
Councilmember Shantz,
Here,
Councilmember Grenwalt,
Here.
Councilmember Junk.
Present.
All right, we will go ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and stay standing for the invocation. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day. Lord, I just pray for wisdom and guidance over the council members as they go about making decisions that affect Parker and the area surrounding. Lord, I just ask for that wisdom and for their safety and protection. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I don't think we have any calls to the public, right?
No.
Okay. Chamber Directors report.
Good afternoon, or evening rather, Vice Mayor and Council. I was gonna say in board, now I'm really into the chamber. And board, I just have a quick update, a few different things for the Parker Chamber. First, we are very excited to announce that we are now accepting school supply donations for our annual new teacher donation drive. There's 10 new teachers this year, and we will have our new teacher welcome back breakfast on Monday, July 21st. I just gave you guys your official invitations, so if you guys would like to come and say a few words and welcome the 10 new teachers to the community, it's a great opportunity to show support and meet the newest members. Parks and Recreation will be hosting their summer bash at the end of the July as well. I believe that is on the last Sunday of July. Additionally, the chamber will be moving to a new location. Although it is not our permanent location, it's a little bit more of our temporary permanent location. We found a good place right along the drag. It is actually the old Top Chop office located in the Parker Center. So we plan to be there by August 1st. If anybody wants to help move during July, please feel free. Bailey, thank you so much.
This is on YouTube. You might get lucky.
I just heard a smirk, so I'm like, perfect. Absolutely, 100%. Lastly, the chamber staff will be attending the Arizona Governor's Conference on Tourism from July 16th to 18th, and we look forward to bringing back fresh ideas for our community.
Thank you very much. Okay, so the first item on the agenda is to approve the Town of Parker minutes for the June 17th meeting, 2025. Motion,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, motion to approve passes. Okay, so discussion and possible action on the following items. First is a month-to-month lease agreement between the Town of Parker and the University of Arizona for space at 1115 West 12th Street. Amy?
Thank you, Vice Mayor and Council. As Councilmember Daniels touched upon, the Top Chop office is moved, which left the U of A representative without an office. So we offered space over at the senior center. So this lease is basically just redoing all of that. So we've rented one of the offices for $450 a month, which is a little bit cheaper than what it was before for them. The space is much smaller than that last office. So it worked out well for both parties. The U of A did request a month-to-month lease till September of 2025 due to their uncertainty of grant funding for the program. Spoke with the town manager, she was okay with that and set the price. And they were agreeable to all those terms, so we're asking for approval this evening.
Make a motion to approve the lease agreement between the town and the University of Arizona for month to month.
Second.
All right. All in favor of approving this month-to-month agreement?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion passes. All right, discussion and action to approve or deny the acceptance of ACJC Criminal Justice Commission Grant Award for $109,780.46 for the purchase of installation of cameras at Western Park. Chief Bailey.
Evening, Vice Mayor and Council and member of the public. It's a tight crowd here. I'm here before you tonight to recommend or requesting that the Town of Parker accept the awarded funding for the Arizona Criminal Justice Commission, ACJC, in the amount of $109,780.46, and to assign the town manager as the authorized official signing the purposes. Recently, the Parker Police Department submitted a grant request through the Arizona Criminal Justice Commission in the amount of the above $109,000 to purchase and install security surveillance cameras at Western Park. This project was started after the recent shootings that occurred at this location last year. The fiscal impact is none. This is a reimbursable grant through ACJC with no match requirements. This will allow us to purchase, that's phase one, and then phase two would be Parby Park, but purchase everything we had discussed and we had brought to you guys, I think last year before the budget or before I left, for the cameras and loudspeakers and I think lighting too. That was already purchased for the light poles over there.
Anybody have any questions or anything? I do recall discussing all of that previously, but if anybody else has any questions.
So
or
no
anything.
fiscal impact?
No, it's
overall?
reimbursable. I believe it's reimbursable. When I spoke to them last, this is back in March-ish. A lot has happened since then, but if it's not reimbursable, then it's going to be, they'll send us a check. But there's no match funding required for this.
And the anticipation is 100% with that. How soon is that? So it's reimbursable, so we have to put the money up front, and then they're gonna,
If it's reimbursable, yes.
and then they're gonna give us some funds.
They'll give us all, once we submit the receipt, if it's reimbursable, once we submit the paperwork for it, they'll give us the funding for it. I don't know how the ACJC works. I know with our other grants that are reimbursable, it's on a quarterly basis. I'm not sure how ACJC, if it's once we submit all the receipts. And I think there's also a provision here that allows for the administration of the grant too. So that'll help with town hall covering portions of that too. So once we submit that to them, we get paid for that.
And who did you say the grant is from?
ACJC, Arizona Criminal Justice Commission. And it's their grant for community safe, anti-shooting. I'll have to get the exact verbiage for this portion of the grant for you, but
Have we been awarded from?
yes. Oh, from them before? No. This we've been awarded this.
Okay, so first time. I guess, do they do grants like this often?
Well, I don't know. That's a good question. I think they do, but I'm not. This is the first time we ever submitted for it.
I think they're more focused on port security grants. I know we've done one for,
Yeah.
I think Tracy's done.
Yes, that's what we did the maritime to.
Right, obviously the concern being that the project falls within the scope of
Yeah.
the grant and all that.
But yeah, it's a massive amount of funding from them, so definitely
Yeah.
great that they're willing to fund this.
I would make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I just had a question. I'm sorry. I kind of went, it's going a little quick for me, but I do have a question for Chief.
Go for it.
On the, I think you probably already addressed this, but the access to it by public, or is there a policy in place that would, like a, well, I don't know their exact language, but Like if freedom of information, if somebody wanted access to it from the public to view it, would it be in line with what the similar policy as the body cams that the officers are wearing, or does that fall under a different type of a policy?
So it would still fall under pretty much the town's overall policy because it'd be town-owned equipment. They wouldn't have access to be able to log in and see real-time stuff. They'd have to be specific, like, hey, I want to see video from this time to this time. We would do what we normally do, whether it's security cameras in the building or body cameras, give them copies, download the portion of that to give them if needed.
Do they do like a public records request or something for that?
They would have to,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, and maybe Christine.
Okay, so it just, it goes separate from the police department and the private sector.
Yeah, so our policy pretty much falls in line under state statute, under the records requests for cameras and body-worn cameras and whatnot. And the town, I think, is the same, would fall under the same thing. So a person can come in and they can request to view a video, but they really, not like a live video. Well, this is the first time we've had a live video capabilities like this right here, but it would just fall under our policy that the town has, which follows state law.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
That-
Since you guys did take the vote, I did want to make sure, because I'm not sure if Councilmember De Leon registered his vote.
I did not register my vote, but I will now, and it'll be in aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ray. All right, so that passes. Next item on the agenda is discussion and action to approve or deny the ordinance 01-2025 declaring the town of Parker recreational marijuana 2025 updates and the town of Parker marijuana zoning regulations for marijuana establishments. Nora Yackley.
Good evening. We're here tonight to look at the ordinance that we spoke about. We did have a work session couple months ago, I guess, in regards to this. And Christina was good enough to update all of the zoning regulations that needed to be updated along with the ordinance. And I will turn this over to her to go through this. It's pretty legal beagle, other than it follows state statute to the T, actually. So with that, Ms. Christina?
Sure. Well, okay. So essentially, when the marijuana laws were passed, medical marijuana, cities and towns didn't get much options, right? You had to have the dispensary, and then there was, quite a few rules and regulations that were established by the Department of Health Services. And then those were operating until the recreational marijuana initiative passed. And that's where cities and towns had more of a choice. And most cities and towns at that time when it first passed chose to prohibit what's called marijuana establishments, which are really the recreational marijuana, retail sales, cultivation, and manufacturing, mostly to just sort of get a feel for how all this was going to work out. And then since then, cities and towns like Parker have just started to relook at whether or not you wanted to then change your policy. So right now, the current code prohibits marijuana establishments. So recreational marijuana in terms of sales of, again, retail, cultivation, manufacturing are not allowed in the town. Now, there was always an exception for what we call dual licensees. And again, that was something that was mandated. The town didn't have a choice. So if you had someone who operated a medical dispensary and also got a dual licensee from the state as a recreational for marijuana establishment, the town would have to let them operate. Basically, they'd have sort of both licenses that they had to hold. So the proposal today, this ordinance is essentially allowing marijuana establishments, no more than one, in the town of Parker. With that, if you decide to change and allow this to occur, you can enact reasonable zoning requirements. And so the proposed ordinance really just follows what you've already established for medical marijuana dispensaries. So there's not much difference in terms of the requirements for them, obviously, to have a valid license or registration certificate from the state, And the state has extensive rules on marijuana dispensaries and establishments. Like it's a pretty thick book of regulations that they have to follow even just to get the license or the registration. And then from there, they do need permission, obviously, from the town to make sure that they're in that specific zoning district. And so this proposed ordinance does allow in the commercial zoning district, and then C2, and then also the industrial zoning district, I1. So that's the light industrial. So essentially what this ordinance is doing is allowing a marijuana establishment that does include retail sales, cultivation, and manufacturing, but again, subject to, reasonable regulations, which is everything that we do for dispensaries right now. And then additionally, there's some other provisions in here just to make sure that there's some different language changes, right, between dispensaries and recreational marijuana that I just wanted to make sure that we captured. And that's mostly just getting the boards and officers, making sure obviously that they weren't previously convicted of certain crimes, and all of those things we're just making sure to encompass. So really they're acting in the same manner as a dispensary. And then they'll be able to operate in those two districts that I mentioned. I did want to mention, because I know the question had come up about at the work session about cultivation. And so cultivation generally, as I think I'd mentioned in the work session, that, for medical marijuana, we can't really, it's sort of part and parcel together, right? So it's kind of linked together. And so medical marijuana, again, was sort of imposed on cities and towns. You had to have it. So technically you could have had a cultivation site. You don't, but you could have had one. Now, if you allow a marijuana establishment for recreation, it will have to have a cultivation component if, again, that is something that someone wants to do down the road. With regard to that, there, again, is sort of an additional list of requirements if someone wants to do cultivation, and it really has to do with security, right? So it either has to be in an enclosed locked facility, sort of indoors with certain security parameters, or if it's going to be outside, it has to be sort of in a locked 10-foot wall, secure perimeter type of area, again, for security reasons. So those regulations exist, again, in the administrative code for any type of cultivation site. So I can go in sort of in depth. This was just kind of a high level because I know we talked about it before. So I can go in more detail if you'd like or answer any questions.
I did spend some time going through the materials that you had emailed over, and was also kind of able to clarify my concerns regarding the cultivation side of it. And I know I'm fine with it. I don't have anything else.
One request that I would have for the future, so I know that it's marked up, but it's not like redlined or colored, the differences. I would just ask for the future changes to have more of a red line or colored copy. I see over here, it's just all black and white, so it's very difficult to see the changes that are made. So any changes, I would prefer just more of that color showing so that it's easily identifiable, those changes.
Marked out or something.
Yeah, like on Word, it's just a markup version of that. This looks like it was scanned in black and white, so it's just a little bit more difficult to see those changes.
Sure, and I can certainly do that. Just so you know, the reason why it's in this form is because this is what's going to be published. So, but I can certainly make sort of a more color conformed copy for council.
Yeah, even if it's just for us, that would help us identify those changes.
Just for review purposes.
Yeah. I heard you describe that there's basically only going to be one that's allowed within the town limits. I see over here in, section C, what is that? Part 10, section C, -1, we're 2.5 miles from any other establishment, so basically it limits only one within the particular area. How is that determined? Is it the first one who's has basically put their business license in, or and basically not allow any other establishment to come through, or is there a way that we determine who is that only one that's allowed within the town limits?
Yeah, so I would say, first of all, there's a limited number of licenses. So, and again, that's all issued by the state, right? So we haven't actually really encountered, I think, maybe in Maricopa they have, but where there's been more than one. You know what I mean? It's been typically sort of less than that within a town, right? You might have more within a county, but in terms of the town, it is more of a first come first serve because it's whoever shows up with the license, right? And typically if you have the license, then you might be the only one who has the license. So I think if we encounter that where perhaps we have more than one, we can kind of look into it at that point. I don't know that that's really occurred at this point, just because there's such a limitation on the actual licenses that are available.
And my personal, I hate just restricting or the town's restricting the ability to do business. So maybe that's not going to be an issue, but just having that insider code that we're restricting a business to allow a monopoly within one single business, to me, it doesn't sit well.
And there are at least a half a dozen licensed places here within this tri-state area that would probably consider moving into the area. You have Farm Fresh, Stizzy, you've got the Mojave Valley one. I can think of at least 6 off the top of my head, so.
Yeah, and it's, it's not that I think a ton would, but it's just I hate as a town that we're limiting the potential of a company, if they decide to do business over here, that we're limiting that ability to do so.
I did have a question too.
Yeah, go ahead, Ray.
All right, thank you. The question I have is going off of Councilmember Jenk's comment. I couldn't find anything that stated how the approval process was. So say we had 1 or 2 or 3, is it solely on the town manager's approval, or does that come for the public to get some sort of like a feedback or transparency in being able to decide how or who gets the license, or is the state the one that just mandates that whoever presents their license and has their paperwork in order are going to be the ones established in our town, if that does come to play?
Yeah, typically it's operated more as like an administrative permit, right? Because again, they just need to check a box at the state that they basically have approval to operate in the city or town. So that's how it's normally been run. There's nothing to say if you want to add other things down the road, like we would have to either table and I'd have to revise this one, or if you want to pass and then we add something else later. I mean, we could create, I guess, whatever process it is that you might be interested in, but it's usually just kind of runs through similar to any other sort of permitting. So those don't usually come before council.
So we do have an application that they fill out, and it has more information than a typical business application would have, because we do have some things in here that they have to obviously give
Facility
us.
requirements, right?
Mhm. So there has to be a site plan, there has to be, there's a list of things. Also, their identification, so we can do a small background check to make sure that they don't have any of these things, which is written into here. But it's treated as a typical business license, other than the extra things that we would put in there. I do want to mention that this did go to planning and zoning on Thursday for their approval. The only thing that they had mentioned is, and this is partly on me as well, because we had talked about it at our meeting before. The interior lighting having the shop being illuminated all night long and all day was something that we sort of decided that wasn't necessarily a good thing. Just for people driving by, you don't want them, kind of looking in and doing all of those things. And I forgot to have Miss Christina take that portion out. But other than that, planning and zoning had no other objections.
What about, I guess one of my concerns would be, and this might already be addressed, but say somebody applies for that license, and they don't already have an establishment, like they don't already have the property or the building for it.
Okay, so we don't issue a business license unless
Okay.
you have an establishment or a property
Okay,
for
that
any
was-
business.
That was my concern, with somebody like holding or kind of
No.
hoarding that ability, like, oh, we're gonna build it, and then kind of limiting
No.
somebody else that
Yeah, no,
was
we
ready to
don't.
go.
For any business, they have to have a,
Right, like
Unless it's
actually
a-
brick and
unless-
mortar, a
right.
sign and all of that, right?
unless it's an online business, and then, of course, they would have that through their home or whatever, which would have to be a zone for that particular use.
Gotcha. Is there any further
And
discussion?
the,
Go ahead, Ray.
now, in the work session, was that addressed though, or brought up at all on the process for the final approval? I know, Nora, you said that the decision basically falls on you to give the decision to move forward as long as everything's in place that's needed. I just thought that with I guess that not necessarily controversy, that's the only word that comes to mind, but it's not really a controversy. It's just that most people want to see and they want to understand and know everything that's going to be involved, especially when it comes to this type of an establishment, mainly because there's so many negative connotations to it. I see a lot of benefits to it myself, but I just like to err on the side of transparency and where the public feels comfortable knowing how those decisions are being made.
We can.
So I guess my question was that if we can put into some, maybe an added layer into that, or if it's already been decided or already, not decided, but it's already been inserted in how you're going to make your decision, or council, if that's going to go to council or not.
That's a decision that you guys would make if you wanted to put that extra layer in there. The only thing that it says right now is that anybody within, I believe it's a 2 or 3 block radius of should get of the new establishment should get a letter in the mail stating that this is what's happening and this is a security company that they'll be using, and this is the name of the owner, a number, how to get a hold of the security company, and also how to get a hold of the owner, should that be necessary for the people around. But we can, as Christina stated, we can put anything in here that you guys want to add as far as,
Yeah, I'd like to consider that, where there's some language that you could draft, Christina, that if the council's in agreement, or I would just like to put it out there for even further discussion and how that would work out, or how that should be played. If it's unnecessary, I could see that. But, just hearing from different people around town, they just wanted to see how and these decisions are being made
So,
and who gets the license.
so I guess what I'm kind of like interpreting or understanding is that you would like to have the community determine who ends up coming here in terms of a business? I just don't know how
No,
that
not
would
necessarily.
play
It's
out.
just that usually whenever a decision's made at the town manager level, it's usually with one person. And then I know there's policy and everything that has to be adhered to. It's not that she's just arbitrarily making decisions, yes, no, favoring one side or the other, nothing like that. It's just that when it comes before us, it tends to go in front of the public. And so that's the transparency element that I was wanting to kind of incorporate into this. But if it's going to be something that the state states that it's not necessary, or it shouldn't be treated any differently than any other type of an operation or business venture, then it would basically be a moot point for me to even request that or suggest that. I just wanted clarification. And also if that's the gray area, or if there's other municipalities that are using that, then maybe we might want to use that as a best practices approach. And if it's working and faring well with them as well.
I mean, does anybody feel like it would be out of line for that application to come in front of council before approval, since there's only one application
My,
goes out there, or?
My preference would be removing that section for the only one within a 2.5-mile radius. So with that, if they meet all the other particular requirements, I believe that they should be
Still be
allowed to come to this particular area. So in my preference, I would want to see that removed, and basically if they meet all the particular qualifications, being able to be
Sure.
qualified for that. So with that regard, then it does not fall under a particular singular, any individual's decision of yes, no. It's do they meet the requirements? And if they do, then that can go forward. So that's not needing that public hearing process, what Ray's describing. Is that correct, Ray?
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, I just wanted a little more discussion in that area, just to help clarify the point or issue.
No, and I see where you're coming from too. Just, I mean, would we be able to approve this tonight with the understanding that we'll just remove the distance or the limitations on the number? I mean, I don't want to hold this up, but at the same time, I do also feel that limiting it to one is probably not the right idea.
Agree.
And I'm also not saying there's people chomping at the bits to be here to do that, but if you go to like Palm Springs or something, you can go down a road in Palm Springs and run across 5 of them, and they're all across the
Wanna
street from
stop
each other.
businesses
You
from
know?
coming.
Yeah, and the potential tax revenue and income that could come from more than one would be more than welcome.
So what I guess I will say is a couple things here. So the no more than one is, again, just because you can sort of be incremental one way, right? But if we open it up, you can't later go back. So I just want to make sure that you are good with, if you allow and then we end up having 2 or 3 in town, right? We can't go back and limit it. So I think the no more than one was just sort of as a caution. And then if you want to change it later because someone else comes up and says, hey, I want to be in the town as well, and then you can add no more than 2, right? I mean, you can always adjust it. But if you want to just remove that entirely, we can do that. I would say, though, now we're starting to make a little bit more substantive changes where when you're having this type of ordinance, there's usually supposed to be a public hearing, which they did that for P&Z. So that was satisfied. But if you're going to make more changes, I would probably recommend that you let me draft it. I can also look into whether or not kind of how other cities and towns maybe do other components to it. And then you have another public hearing before you adopt it.
That would be my preference. I know that may delay it another month or so, but I'd rather have those particular things addressed. Another,
Oh, go ahead.
if you're still on that topic.
No, I was just wondering if that was the only revision that we were kind of hung up on.
Well, the other portion was the lighting portion. I think we're talking about removing.
Well, P and Z did talk about that in their public meeting, so that would be satisfied with that public meeting, but
And the other question I know that we talked about during our work session was in terms of the drive-through, and there was questions overall with that. I know in here it states that we would not have a drive-through. I thought we were talking about how we would allow that. I guess that's just how I was remembering it. I guess what is the rest of the council's thoughts on that point?
Right, and I did talk to an establishment with a drive-through to kind of get some insight on that. And I'm not necessarily as concerned. It's very expensive and laborious to have a drive-through, and it's not preferred, I guess, from a business standpoint. So leaving it unrestricted, I don't think that the concerns that I had prior would even be an issue. So I mean, I know I was kind of opposed to a drive-through prior, but at this point, I don't think it's an issue.
I think our major issue was just like, we didn't want a Roberto's issue where
Right.
it's going into the main highways or something, but, you know, in all reality, I think if we remove that restriction, that'd be something, you know, might bring that business in. So I'm not opposed.
Right. Yeah, and I guess there's reasons a lot of them don't have drive-throughs. So if they did, they would have to kind of go above and beyond to make it happen, and that's unlikely. So.
Yeah. to Josh's point, I think that was my original objection is with that exact concern with that. But on the flip side, I'm also not super big on limiting the business's ability to do their own business. So that's where, on that side of things, I would be more in favor of removing that section. And that's section G, subsection 3.
Okay.
So with those revisions, Christina, would we have to table this till the next meeting or?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, even just the no more than one is probably substantive enough that we really should have another public hearing.
Okay.
I mean, that's a pretty big policy decision, you
Okay.
know, in terms of allowing, you know, sort of unlimited versus just one in town, or going from none to all
What
of it.
would the
So
venue for the public hearing be? Would that be a council meeting or another planning and zoning meeting?
it
or-
can be either under your code. So if the P and Z does it, then council does not have to do it, but
We could have them do it again, or,
But
It
we
would
have
be
another
quicker.
council meeting before they have
Oh,
another
okay.
Yes,
P&Z.
because
Gotcha.
you'll have a council meeting in
In
2
2
weeks.
weeks, and they won't
They
have
only
for a
meet
month.
once a month.
okay.
So you, please request that for the
Yeah.
agenda.
And prior to that, can you send a marked up, colored marked up copy prior to that? So I can go through.
oh yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so I think we're all set on tabling this item at the moment and making the revisions discussed, right?
Mhm.
Bringing it
Yeah,
back
I think I
to,
have all the direction I need. Yeah.
okay, and then we can get this on the next meeting's agenda.
Correct.
Okay. Do I need to have a vote to do
There
that?
doesn't
or
need to
can we
be a
just table it?
motion or
Okay,
anything.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll table that one. Next up's liaison reports, council member liaison reports.
So I have kind of a lengthy report, so I'll try to go fast. The Parks and Rec had our summer recreation program throughout the month of June. I believe it went really well. There was one complaint to my understanding to the town, and I actually spoke with that parent today and asked them some of the concerns. The main, or first point that they made was that it was not what we advertised online. So I went back to our advertisement, and all we said online was that there was a summer recreation program. So I'm not really sure what they were expecting from that. My kid, I know, went for 2 weeks, had a lot of fun. On Fridays, they had water days. They went to Splash Pad, and then they had movie days on Fridays as well. They played different games. My 5-year-old, like I said, had a ball. I'm very happy with what we offered the town, especially for free when it's 115 outside. So thank you to the Parks and Rec, IDA, and everybody that made that summer recreation program possible.
Yeah, summer camps are always tough. Not a lot you can do outside.
Right, and we're in a gym, and, oh, thank you for bringing that up too. And then with the food program with Park Unified School District, they ended up offering the free lunches. So the kids were also able to get the free breakfast and free lunches. So although we didn't offer that as a town, the school district was kind enough to give us a little itty bitty fridge inside there that the kids could keep their lunch in. So a lot of the kids that attended were able to get their free breakfast and free lunch as well.
Cool.
Yes.
Anybody else with liaison reports?
Nope.
Anything on joint venture? What's the deal with
So,
that?
Our last joint venture meeting last month, we discussed currently what's going on. There is no lease in place. The joint venture is also looking at fulfilling the new rate study and also doing the emergency plan. Ashley's getting everything together, and we have a meeting next Wednesday, I believe. So.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
Should that be agendized item, maybe at the next
At
meeting,
every
just
meeting?
to further discuss and
Yeah, I feel like we,
potential have contract negotiation talks that?
it's an update, just a general update maybe. Would we be able to throw that on the next agenda, just kind of a general update on joint venture?
With potential contract negotiation discussions.
Or at least where we're at on it, if anywhere.
Yes, sir.
To allow us. More, I'm just saying contract negotiation in case we need to go to executive session for any reason
Gotcha.
for discussion.
All right, announcements, Wednesday, July 2nd, Parker Community Center Advisory Board, 4:30. Tuesday, July 8th, Park and Recs Advisory Board, 4 PM. Monday, July 14th, Library Advisory Board, 5 PM. Tuesday, July 15th is the next regular council meeting. If there's nothing else, then meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, I think of